No! No! No!
Come on, get down there! Get down there!
I'm coming! I'm coming! I'm coming! I hear!
Holden! Beat them down there!
Yeah, enough! Yeah, enough!
Canada!
Is he dead? He dead? He dead? We got him! We get it!
Put his back in the sewer!
DJ Khaled!
Yeah! All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time I step up in the building, every... All right, get on your knees. Stand up. Get on your knees. Stand up. Stand up. Get on your knees. Stand up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Is she dead?
Yeah, I think she's done.
She dead. She died.
You!
Hey, right there! Right there!
Over here. Get on your knees. On your knees.
Your neck.
Give me the baby.
You'll die now!
Stay there.
You'll die! Will be hanged today. Your show is over.
Pull.
Suffocate him!
Welcome to the torture chamber.
He's done.
He's done. He's dead. White lips.
Prior to the Civil War, Guatemala teetered between peace and war during the 10 Years of Spring, or 10 Years of Democracy. The 10 Years of Spring is also known as the Guatemalan Revolution, where Juan Jose Arevalo was replaced by Jacobo Arbenz as president. A new constitution was adopted in March 1945, which proclaimed a social democratic revolution. Under this constitution, the government would give more attention to the grievances of middle and lower class citizens. It provided for freedom of speech and press, and allowed previously banned labor unions and political parties to organize. Some other things that happened were the Revolution Act was the Land Reform Law of June 1952, which attempted to confiscate unused agricultural land from large property owners, known as the United Fruit Company.
Ultimately, the United States agreed to step in and helped squash the communist menace. A group of Guatemalan exiles, commanded by Colonel Carlos Castillo Armas, was armed and trained by the CIA and the U.S. Marine Corps officers. A group invaded Guatemala on June 18, 1954, and the Guatemalan army refused to resist the invaders. After Arbenz resigned, the government was turned over to 3 military officers who were soon overthrown by CIA favorite Castillo Armas. Going forward, the United States greatly contributed to the violence by training Guatemalan police in torture tactics in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Conflicts between races and classes also contributed to the escalating problem.
The guerrilla groups justified their violence through Marxist communist ideas, stating that it was acceptable to kill the Mayans because they were culturally unfit for a modern nation's advancement and politically undesirable.
Innocent children were often beaten against walls or thrown alive into pits where the bodies of adults were later placed. They were also tortured and raped. Victims of all ages had their limbs amputated and were impaled left to die slowly. Others were drenched in petrol and set on fire. Yet others were shot repeatedly or tortured and set aside to die in extreme pain all alone. The preferred type of torture was suffocation performed by a thick blanket or rag of some sort. The wombs of pregnant women were cut open and were routinely raped while being tortured.
Two of the most infamous and malicious leaders of the cruel acts in Guatemala were General Jose Efrain Rios Montt and General Lucas Garcia. The election of Lucas Garcia was followed by an increase in the senseless killing, torture, and disappearance of trade unionists, academics, lawyers, and religious leaders. An estimated 5,000 civilians were killed by government forces. Another vicious leader of genocide was General Jose Efrain Rios Montt. Two truth commissions, the REMHI report, sponsored by the Roman Catholic Church, and the CEH report, conducted by the United Nations as part of the 1996 Accords of Firm and Durable Peace, documented widespread human rights abuses committed by Rios Montt's military regime, including widespread massacres, rape, torture, and acts of genocide against the indigenous people. Supporters claim that he had to rule with great force because the country was becoming unstable due to the Civil War. Rios Montt has, at times, had close ties to the United States, receiving direct and indirect support from certain agencies, including the CIA. Rios Montt is best known for controlling a bloodthirsty military regime.
This case of genocide in Guatemala is considered to have ended in 1996 when a peace agreement was finally reached after 36 years of conflict beginning in 1960. Since then, Guatemala has been trying to recover from its civil war, but it's hard to do when so many of the civilians that took place in the atrocities are now shielded by an amnesty law, bitterly resented by the victims of the crimes. All the same, a policy of reconciliation was introduced and with difficulty maintained.
One short-term result was that following the Civil War, Mayans were able to bring criminal charges against the former dictator and others who had held power. They were able to present evidence and get them convicted quite easily. The next trials were a success, convicting 3 city patrolmen and sentencing them to death. One long-term result of the genocide was a significant change in the government of Guatemala. A strict dictatorship turned into a form of democracy, including civilian rule. The Guatemalan people, post-genocide, finally had an honest say in their government. But at the same time, army is still a big factor in the decision making.